I'm super excited. I am going to be talking to Vote Save America today, and I want to, before I bring on Shaniqua McClendon, Vote Save America basically is your one-stop shop. You guys can go on there and get all the information and the tools so you can participate in the 2020 election. And they basically will give you all the details on candidates they're running for the White House, the Senate, the House, and further down the ballot. And you can learn exactly how elections work, and that's what we're going to do today. Hi.
Hey, how are you?
I'm so good. Thank you again for doing this.
Yeah, I'm excited to be doing this.
I have to just, again, applaud you guys for all the work that you've done. The site is so easy to navigate. There's so much information on it. And you'll have to forgive me because I asked my followers to just throw in some questions. So I know that most of these you can probably find on the site, but okay. I just wanted to talk to you. And hear it in your voice. But so the first question I got was, what is the purpose of the primaries and why do I need to vote in them?
So the purpose of the primaries generally is to narrow down the field of candidates to 2 people by the time we get to the general election. It's really important to vote because you want to have a say in who's going to make it to the November election. And it's when you get to vote your heart. You get to see which candidate most aligns with the things that you believe in and your values.
Right. So it's kind of the most important, I think, to vote in the primaries. Okay. Next question was, do I need to register again before November if I registered to vote in the primaries?
You know, once you register the first time, if you still live in the same place or if you're continuing to vote, you should remain registered. Actually, all states are required to keep their voter rolls up to date. And so as people pass away or move, they have to update that. But unfortunately, some states do more than that, and they purge people for a lot of different reasons that don't always make sense. So it's really important to, even if you have registered, just check and make sure you're registered again. You can do that on Vote Save America. We have a tool where you type in your name and address, and it will just confirm for you that you're still registered. Because if you're not, your ballot will not be counted.
There's nothing worse than having that regret. And again, you guys can go to votesaveamerica.com and they have everything there. It's really, really easy to navigate. Somebody asked, how do I get a mail-in ballot? When do I mail it? And does it get counted the same?
Yeah, so mail-in ballots are, they might not look the same because some places have electronic voting systems, but as far as what's on the ballot, it's the same as if you showed up in person. It's counted exactly the same as long as you get it in on time. Some states, like Colorado, will automatically send you a ballot if you're registered to vote. Mm-hmm. But in other states, you have to actually request to get your ballot in the mail. And so you can fill out an absentee ballot application and you just send that in. But not every state just allows you to get one just because you want one. So you need to either be, out of town or sick. Most states have a list of reasons that you would be able to request one. So you can actually, if you go to votesaveamerica.com/absentee, one thing I would tell people to pay attention to, because of coronavirus, a lot of states are actually making changes to their vote by mail laws. So states where it's not possible now, it may be possible by the time we get to November.
Yeah. I don't want that to discourage anybody. We have to do whatever we have to do, but it is definitely an archaic system. Somebody asked, how do I vote from overseas?
Yeah, it's pretty similar to requesting an absentee ballot, but if you are eligible to vote under your state's rules, you can basically request a ballot for someone who lives overseas. The only distinction there is some states will not allow you to vote for local office. They'll only allow you to vote for federal office. The thinking there is you don't actually live here, and so let's let the people who live here vote for a mayor or something like that. But if you're just out of town, not living overseas, then that would just be an absentee ballot request.
Okay, somebody said I recently registered, however, I'm confused about the rest of the process before November.
Yes, so that is great that you registered. Coronavirus has completely changed the landscape of voting, and the first thing I would suggest you do is request an absentee ballot. You can do that as early as now. And once you request it and get it, return it as soon as possible, because a lot more people will be voting by mail this year. So election officials are going to be inundated with a ton of ballots. If you're voting in person, to actually make a plan to vote, I know that sounds silly. It's I know where I need to go. I'm just going to show up. but it's the easiest thing to kind of slip from your calendar if you have a lot of other things going on. So just check out where your polling place is, put it on your calendar. And then after you take care of yourself, share that information with your family and friends. And then if you want to take it a step further, it involved, you can find this on votesaveamerica.com, but you can actually go volunteer for candidates who, are important to you. And so that might be the presidential, but that also could be a city council race that is in your local community.
Why do some people think that their votes don't matter because they live in a certain blue or red state?
I'm not going to blame everything on the news because, I guess we have agency. But I think a lot of it is because the news focuses on federal elections. When you were thinking about the presidential election, a fair amount of states are just blue and red. But one thing I always think about is the fact that on average, like in 2016, I think turnout was around 55%. And so that means just over half of eligible voters voted. I think, instead of wondering if my vote matters, we should be thinking about why more people aren't participating in the system so we can truly see, what it looks like in these states. And then aside from the presidential, like state and city races, they sometimes come down to 10 votes or 100 votes. And so, every vote mattered.
Can you explain, I actually really need to know this. Can you explain electoral votes versus the popular vote?
Yes.
Because a lot of people, including myself, like we obviously saw in the 2016 election, what happened with the Electoral College. Just give us all the info.
The Electoral College is like this layer between the popular vote, which is just like me and you voting. The collection of our votes and whatever that sum total is, that's a popular vote. The Electoral College is a collection of electors from every state. I think there's 55 electoral votes in California. So the popular vote went for Hillary Clinton, and then those 55 electors went and voted for her. But based on the way that worked out across the state, Donald Trump, the states that he won had more electors than the states that Hillary Clinton won. So states that have fewer people get more of a say, and it starts to feel like one vote doesn't equal one vote.
Yeah.
If you live in California, your vote feels like a little bit less than someone in Wyoming who's getting overrepresented in the Electoral College. And so that's why there's a lot of conversation as to whether or not we should have it. But people who support it feel like, I live in Wyoming. Why should the coast get to decide who the president is?
That feels super archaic. It feels like it complicates things.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do I do if I'm turned away at the polling place due to voter suppression, and how do I report it if I see it?
Yeah, so we work a lot with an organization called Election Protection, and it's a coalition of organizations that fight voter suppression. If a poll worker tells you something that doesn't seem right, you can call 866-OUR-VOTE. They will give you the information to help you navigate that process. Poll workers are often volunteers, and so it's a lot for us to expect them to know every election law when they are doing that work. So if someone turns you away, ask to speak to their supervisor. Like, there is someone on site who should know exactly what is right and wrong.
All right, it's frustrating. I can't find unbiased info on candidates. We've been hearing that a lot lately. What's the best resource for that?
Unbiased information is just going to be hard to find. And this is me also making a critique of the media and saying that, because the media should be where we can go to get, kind of middle of the road, here are the facts information. Politics are just covered in such a weird way that now for political coverage, everything is like, what does this mean? And not just, where does this candidate stand on this? So something I encourage people to do is to actually, before you even start researching the candidates, figure out what's important to you. But I think it's really important to establish where you stand on a set of issues and kind of what your deal breakers are, and then go find out, how has this candidate voted in the past? What have they been saying on the campaign trail? And who are they taking money from? Are they taking money from people who don't want you to vote or do want you to vote? It
is unfortunate, but I feel like media has become, I feel like they kind of play up to their majority. So they kind of like read the room and then they cater to that so that they can get ad dollars and continue on with business. So it is really tough to find unbiased information. So just Google, guys, and do your best to get your own information. And then let's see, last question was, how do I learn more about everything else that's on the ticket other than the president's selection?
If you use Ballotpedia is a resource I use all the time. And if you just Google Ballotpedia sample ballot, so you can type in your address and then see who are the other people that you can vote for in the election in November. But what we go in and do is add information about the races, kind of, you know, where candidates have stood on different issues, and just provide a little bit more context around the dynamics of the race. But if you have a Senate race going on in your state, you can see which candidates are running there. Everyone's House of Representatives member will be up this year, so that'll be there. And, you know, really pay attention to those other races. Like the Secretary of State in some states will be up for re-election. And so many people don't realize that the Secretary of State determines what your elections look like. And that's why there was so much commotion about Georgia, because the person who was in charge of the election was running for governor, and he got to determine, like, who are we going to purge off the rolls? What polling locations are we going to close? And, you know, by coincidence, a lot of Black people were purged off the voter rolls and had their polls closed, which helped him. The presidency, of course, is very important, but so many races down the ticket they have control over so much. And if we are not also holding them accountable, they can, you know, go rogue, whatever they want.
Yeah. Aren't the Senate seats also 6-year long?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, that right there, it's like if you were to vote and get who you wanted to have in Senate seat, you're, you know, making change for a long time. This is amazing. You are incredible. Thank you for doing that.
For having me. This has been great.
You guys, again, you can go to votesaveamerica.com to get more information. Vote like your life depends on it, because it literally does. And I think it's like the most incredible thing that we get to live in a country where we can have a say. Okay, I have other questions for you, so maybe we'll do this again in the next little while. But thank you again so much. You're incredible. And I hope to talk to you soon. And I hope that in December we can have a party celebrate.